With this, we would like to move on to the next session for the day. FinTech is a phrase that many of us have come across before, but may not understand completely. The topic surrounds the use of technology in the world of finance and how it has developed over the years. In simple terms, FinTech refers to any development in technology that is now used to help people manage their finances, including online banking, automation insurance, trading, and etc. The last decade alone has seen a considerable increase in fintech all over the world. And between 2008 to 2015, investment in financial technology rose by over 2000%. To understand the importance of this emerging technology, and thus to provide a comprehensive breakdown of the fintech industry, we have with us today Mr. Saurabh Tripathi, Director of Risk Consulting at KPMG. Mr. Tripathi has spent more than 15 years in the industry. His experience covers a gamut of services to help improve the governance, risk, and compliance environment through services like internal audit, enterprise risk management, developing model business processes, and forensic investigations. He has worked in a wide range of industries such as automobile, consumer markets, engineering, infrastructure, ITES, metals and minings, pharmaceuticals, ports and logistics, and real estate. Today, Sir will be speaking on the topic, FinTech is the new normal. We welcome you, sir.
Thank you, Sumit. Thank you so much. And I think we just had a lovely, wonderful session, by Dr. Mujumdar. I'm absolutely overwhelmed with the inputs which he shared with all of us. And, before we move on to the session, I would, I would like to association with the organization. And, good afternoon, Dr. Sharma, Dr. Mathur. We have been interacting a lot. Unfortunately, because of COVID, we could not see each other in person. But it's wonderful to have you all again and meet you while not in person in the new normal. In fact, what I can see is that we have more people than what we used to interact in past. So I think that's the positive side of it, right? We have almost 500 people here. So that's the positive side of technology, or I would say the better part of COVID. All right. So with that background, if you allow me to share my screen. Do let me know if you have if you can see the slides.
We can see.
Yes, sir, we can.
Okay, excellent. So, as Sumit mentioned that, the importance of FinTech is only growing day by day, and there has been a significant interest in the financial institution fraternity since 2008. And there, in fact, it's great to know that, Sumit, you had the numbers handy. There has been a 2000% growth in the FinTech sector in last 10 years, if I have to say. And with COVID, we have only seen this sector growing. In fact, this was one of the sector which grew the most during this difficult time. So while all the sectors had their challenges, so did the FinTech sector. But if we see in totality, the importance of this sector has only increased. So, for example, the likes of, and I don't think any one of us today would be untouched by this sector. So it's pretty interesting, and needless to say that this is the future of financial institutions, right? So with that background, what we have today is a quick background. We'll start with a quick background about the sector. Then I would like to give some overview about how investments are happening globally and what FinTech means to India. How is the progress happening in the sector as far as India is concerned? Some numbers which will excite us. I thought that would be a good way to start. And thereafter, we will go to the other aspects like, what are the synergies? How is FinTech? What are the opportunities, emerging trends? And then, thereafter, we'll be happy to take your questions. So start with, if I have to simplify what is fintech, usually we think of fintech as something which has to do with banking or shares, stock, but it is a much wider term. So just to give you to simplify it, if I have to say, the term fintech refers to the computer program or other technologies which we use in business, especially in financial services, to enhance the user experience, right? And given the COVID scenario, the overall involvement of fintech has only increased, and it is increasing day by day. If we see what's happening today, is that fintech started with, I would say, largely by startups or companies providing small size fintech companies providing some services here and there. But with time, the overall gamut of fintech has significantly improved. And now even the matured financial institutions are adapting more and more technology to not only increase their outreach, but also to increase their customer experience, right? So for example, if I take a simple example of SBI, the first thing which will come to our mind is a branch where you have to go stand in a queue. But now SBI has a app called Yono, right, which is an all-inclusive app. You can do investments, you can buy mutual funds, you can borrow loans, you can transact whatever you want to do. I think it's a wonderful platform. So that's a classical example of about how even the mature financial institutions like SBI, or I would say, who are supposed, or the taboo is that they are the brick and store mortar financial institutions. Even they are not, they are touched upon, and everybody is picking up on this in this space, and is a classical example of how financial institutions are looking towards the future, right? I mean, so long story short, fintech again is the future. Now, so fintech, as I said, usually what comes to our mind is one or two, couple of things, but it's a much larger, platform, or rather, gamut of services which fall under this. So if I have to force rank, I would say there are largely 10 buckets in which we can the fintech service offerings into. So the one which we are usually aware of is the capital markets related fintechs like Zerodha, Upstock, or insurance fintech like Policy Bazaar. But there are many others. The upcoming ones like the blockchain, the one on blockchain where we do crypto trading, right? The Zepes, CoinDCs of the world. Likewise, there are many lending platforms which have come up. Okay, so now people can go to these platforms through a paperless way. They can start borrowing funds. They can at the click of a button. Likewise, you have payment and billing, personal financing. We have CRED, wonderful platform again. So and then these are the ones which are touched upon by people like you and me, which are B2C, largely B2C. But there are others who are into RegTech, and these are B2B fintech companies with superbly higher amount of valuation. So and fairly mature. So fintech again is a much wider term beyond what we would usually think dealing with financial institution or capital market. And the scope of fintech is only increasing day by day. So what you see on your screen is only illustrative 10 larger buckets which I could think of, or I thought would be more relevant, or we have a more recall value towards. But there are many other buckets within which the fintech sector is coming. So before we move on to the nitty-gritties of opportunities, threats, I thought that it would be relevant for us to understand what fintech means in today's world. First maybe at a global level, and then we can perhaps dwell deeper into India. These were the top 10 deals in fintech space in 2021. The biggest one by Refinvet, based out in UK, 14 billion US dollars is the valuation which it got. Likewise, Robinhood. I'm just naming the one which are more prominent ones. Robinhood, which is again a kind of Zerodha kind of platform, uh, low brokerage platform, so on and so forth. So, these are high value deals which have happened. If I dwell deeper into this, in the year 2021, in totality, the sector has seen 200 plus billion-dollar worth of investments coming in, and both from venture as well as private equity. Now, if I have to explain what does that mean, is that venture capital investments are typically done in the early stage where the organization is not very matured, and private equity typically comes into picture when the organizations are matured. So if we see the dollar value of investments, it's evenly spread to a large extent, and there are more and more investments which are happening. We are talking about close to 5,600 deals which were done in the year 2021, right? Uh, and if we talk about VCs itself, they did close to 4,000 plus investments in this space. If we see the trend, as I mentioned, that the importance or the traction in this space has significantly increased given the pandemic, and that can also be seen in the investment trends in the last in if we see the last 4-year trend, the maximum amount of investment happened towards the last 1 year, where we so again, upcoming sector, future is here. Now, if we go to India, right, we saw how the world is moving around. If we speak about India, uh, what is the base of fintech? The base of fintech is internet, right? And if we see the internet subscription of in India, it is, we all know that it is growing uh, day by day, right? The internet penetration is in India is 61%, right? The cost of internet is one of the lowest in the world, and uh, we on fintech world, I think India is one of the highest digitally accommodating country, where we have the maximum amount of digital transaction, not in dollar terms, but certainly the number of transactions. We are the highest in the world, right? Uh, so that speaks a lot about the maturity which we already have in place today, and the infrastructure which is needed for fintech. So, once the infrastructure is there, once the adaptability of people to use technologies, is there, that's the right amount of base which is needed for any business to boom. And if we uh, and likewise, the number of smartphone, if we speak about, of the country which we are talking about, we are a 1.4 billion, country of 1.4 billion, and almost a billion people today are using smartphone. So there is a lot of scope for the fintech companies to grow, and as a result of which, we will, we can see that there are already many, I would say, established players which have come up in India, and these are only a few which we see on your screen. The like of ATMs, Bharat Pay have become a household name. Even our grocery shop, or even our panwalas today are on Paytms and Bharat Pays of the world. We were the first one to come up with the UPI technology, and the world is now adopting it. Again, India is leading the path on some of the fintech technology which the world is adapting today. Uh, uh, and likewise, there are many other. I spoke of the first vertical. The second vertical is on investment tech. Post pandemic, what we saw is the interest of people in investing in stock market has significantly increased, and as a result of which, with mutual funds coming in, with the likes of Zerodha, almost almost no brokerage is being charged, again, which is helping in creating excellent ecosystem for company, for these companies to perform, and at the same time, more and more awareness is getting created around these platforms. So uh, again, fintech in India, while we have a long way to go, but a fairly matured players have already established, and there are again neo banking, the likes of neo banking, insurance. Insurance penetration is pretty low in India today, if we see. But with the with these fintech companies like the policies bazaars of the world coming in, echoes of the world coming in, the penetration of fintech is also improving. Also, one thing which is very important is that it's not just about money. It's also about increasing the overall, I would say, the well-being of the people in India. Fintech is playing a great role around it. And contribution to economy. We can't undermine the importance what fintech is playing today in contributing to economy, increasing the base of taxpayers, right? I mean, and that's why even the government is more than willing to help these fintech in growing their footprints. There was an incentivization program which was run by the government of India on digital payment. Now, we might many of our many of us were wondering that why is government promoting digital payments? There is a, I won't say there is a hidden agenda. There is a very clear agenda by government over here, which is to enhance the base of taxpayers. Today, when we were, yesterday, when we were cash economy, there were many, I would say, businessmen where they were not in the tax system. But once once the digital trail is created, you can always increase the tax base. So while whatever fintech is doing for the larger good of individual, there is a much larger agenda for the nation as well, and that's where even the government is promoting a lot on, especially around payment and payment gateways, which will eventually have a positive impact on economy, right? Now, if we talk about the market size, we are talking about the GDP of India today is growing at sub 10% level, right? I mean, we degrowed to some extent last year because of pandemic, and this year we will go slightly above the pre-pandemic era. But if we see the growth which is there in the fintech sector, we are expecting a growth of 30+%. 30+% means that we will be doubling every 3 years, right? I mean, in fact, before that, 2.5 years. The sector will double every 2.5 years. It's a big number which we are talking about. So, again, it's the right time for people like you to get exposed to fintech. If you want to grow, this is the right time for you to onboard in the journey of, at the right stage where you can, all of us, I was a confused person to begin with, where to start my career. I won't say all of us, but many of us, I'm counting myself because I was sailing in that boat, are wondering where we should do, where we should focus in our career. I would say if you are looking into financial services sector, this is a space which you should certainly think about, because that's where the growth is. Also, as I mentioned, the companies are getting more and more matured, and that is also evident from the ticket size of the investments which are happening. The more the ticket size means the valuation of companies better. That means they they have a more established business case towards growth. That means that the sector is already maturing and is in right direction. If I have to speak in a nutshell about about the India story in fintech, we are talking about insurance is the biggest vertical which has seen the most amount of growth along with the payment gateways. There is some uncertainty when it comes to the regulatory aspect in this sector. While RBI is, I mean, for example, crypto is one. one such space where we have seen some level of uncertainty, but the government is working towards it. There are 19 unicorns which have already been created, and we are talking about 20 unicorns. Unicorn is $1 billion plus valuation, and unicorn is companies which are touching towards that space. We are talking about 61% of internet penetration. We are at one point, we are a 140 crore, people country, and there's 61% penetration which we are talking about, and 1.3 billion worth of market opportunity by 2025 is what we are talking about in fintech space. And there are already almost close to 5,000 startups which are working in this space. So the sector is booming, no doubt about it. We have fairly matured players already in. Recipe for success is in form of infrastructure and the reach out through 61% penetration already in place. So these are typical. What are the key to success for any space? One, do you have a market? Do you have the infrastructure? And do you have the readiness to cater the market? Right. So if we talk about the market, 61% of India already has internet. So there is ample of market. Do we have right amount of infrastructure? Again, the cost of internet is the lowest in the world. We have almost 100 crores smartphones which are already operating in India. So yes, we have the infrastructure. And thirdly, do we have the player who are ready to capitalize? Yes, in form of unicorns. We already have almost close to 20 unicorns and 20 plus unicorns. And we have 5,000 startups working in this space. Likewise, matured players, financial institutions are heavily investing in fintech. I spoke of SBI. Likewise, all the banks which you speak about, the Paytms of the world. So it's a recipe for success, and that's where I'm pretty confident that fintech is the future of financial services. Moving on to with that background which I just spoke of, the global movement in this space, India's readiness, and in fact the way India is gearing up. Now let's talk about some of the synergies and some of the aspects where the sector is kind of, I would say, lagging behind or need to pull up more. So if we speak about the roadmap, the fintechs are providing a more than decent landscaping for matured player. Okay, so there are sizable amount of fintech which are already there on a standalone basis, as well as the financial institutions. Both of them put together are creating a very promising, I would say, business value chain for these fintech to not only drive themselves but also to thrive themselves. Likewise, fintechs are also improving the user experience. So we spoke of SBI. Again, I'm taking SBI as an example, but there are many others. Today, the way banking is done, the way we want, we are buying and selling stocks, investing in mutual funds, buying policies at the click of a button. We could never think of buying a policy maybe 3 or 5 years back. I mean, while we were adapted to it, think of somebody sitting in tier 2 or tier 3 city where they were absolutely dependent on their agents, and these agents many a time were doing mis-selling because there was no recourse. But with these fintechs coming in, the policy bazaars of the world coming in, one, there is the user experience has significantly improved because they have a wide variety of options under one platform. So there is more information. The buyers can take much more informed decision, and also the mis-selling has significantly reduced. So again, the user experience, the fintechs are improving the user experience significantly. However, while these are the positives, there are some negatives as well. It's not that easy for customers to shift. The incumbents, there is always a resistance to change. So while the fintechs are coming up, and their value proposition is pretty good, the willingness of customers to switch is still not that good. You know, the and that's where the fintechs need to work around for them to create the value proposition such that the customers are more than willing to change. Because the entry, I mean, for example, the way we are porting our mobile numbers, from one subscriber to another, there the willingness is still better, but the kind of infrastructure or the reason for people to change is still not that significant across the value chain. In some spaces within fintech, it has happened, but in many other places, they still need to work, but do much more. For example, if I have to take a loan, I would still want to go to a bank for the reason, I mean, while it's easy for me to do through a fintech platform, I would still want to go to a bank, speak to people, because the entry barriers are not, or rather the innovation which has happened in this space is still not significant, and that's where they need to work. And secondly, on creating the infrastructure, while the wider infrastructure is still there, and in some places, for example, in the payment space, UPI, the kind of revolutionization which has happened, similar revolutionization needs to happen in other fintech space, creating the infrastructure which they need to work on. That's another thing which is holding on these fintech from thriving. That being said, there are multiple, although fintechs have disrupted the competitive landscape, scaping, but they are still in the foundation stage. They need to work a lot towards disruption. But that being said, there are many opportunities which these fintechs are creating today. For example, financial institutions these days are like a supermarket, right? You go to a bank, again, taking the example of same maybe SBI or any other bank, or even to that matter, a Paytm app. It's a financial supermarket. What do you want to do? You think of it, and it is there on that app. That's where the opportunities are getting created. The outreach through fintech has significantly increased. Now, if there is somebody, a salaried employee, maybe even with a 10,000 salary, 15,000 salary, previously, if they used to go to banks were not entertaining them. Now with fintech, at a click of a button, they have to provide minimum information in a paperless manner, and the loan, the ticket size may be lesser, but that's what the requirement is. That has created significant opportunities for many people, and imagine the wider reach which is which is there today. If you have some basic score, CIBIL score, in fact, in many cases you don't even need a CIBIL score, and you can get your loans. So the outreach has significantly increased. However, there are again some challenges which are there today, which especially the financial institutions need to work upon to take the fintech revolution to the next level. And that's where I think these organizations are working today. Talking about the opportunities, there are a lot of opportunities which we, especially in the banking space, or where the companies are now coming together by collaborating. Various fintechs are collaborating together and creating unique proposition, unique solution. Also, we spoke about the way fintech is able, with the help of fintech, we have been able to enhance the reach of our, I would say, financial institution. Now, even in tier 3 cities, forget tier 3 cities, even the rural India, with the help of application, people are able to do banking. So likewise, Internet of Things is another area where we are talking about connected enterprise. Companies will come together, create more create an ecosystem where different technologies, different apps will be able to work together. We are talking about creating more synergies, because think of a situation where you wanted to send give money to somebody, cutting a check, depositing that check, you handing over the check, the person going and depositing the check, and the check realization. Now the whole process, the whole, at the click of a button, here you transfer, and there the person receives. There is too much of value add and efficiencies which these fintechs have created in the economy, and all of this is helping in increasing the real value add in the economy, contributing to the GDP, positive impact, in the touching upon not only the lives of people who are sitting in urban India, but also in rural India. So these are some of the opportunities. I'm conscious of the time, so I'll go a little faster here. Emerging technology, I think we spoke about it. So last thoughts around this. As I mentioned, fintech disruption has happened in every nook and cranny of the financial service industry. We are talking about big data, blockchain, IoT, and all of this is helping us moving fast and not only as an individual, as a company, but also as I would say as a country. India has shown the path to the developed economies like US, UK, and many others, where we are leading by example. And UPI or BHIM is a classical case of that, where now this technology is getting adapted by everybody in the world. And with this, I would like to take a pause. As I said, I'm conscious of the time.
So you can go on and finish the slide if you wish to, and we'll take the questions after this.
I've largely covered because I wanted to finish on time. I have another commitment, so just took a couple of
absolutely
a couple of slides in between. Yeah, please go ahead with your questions.
So, sir, we do have a lot of questions from the audience, and it was tough to narrow down upon the most important ones, but we'll present it to you now. So, sir, the first question that we have is that finance is a field that has always been seen as technical and data-driven. So, is there a human aspect to finance as well, which may have resurfaced during the pandemic?
Anushri, I would say that, while it is data-driven, all of us are getting touched upon by finance, right? I mean, for example, there was a time where we didn't have cash. I mean, no one was able to go to banks, right? I'm talking first about urban India, but all of us were able to survive during pandemic by, through ordering online, paying for groceries online, ordering our products, through the big bazaars of the Amazons of the world, or the big baskets of the world. I mean, I'm giving very simple examples on saying that, yes, there is certainly a human angle involved to it. And everything boils down to, while we may think of finance as a complicated subject, but with the machine learning and AI coming into picture, what's happening is that the financial side of the complicated finance side of it is going out, and we are talking more about solutions. So, for example, as I mentioned, we are talking about UPI as a payment platform, right? I mean, today you go anywhere with the help of fintech, you can just go scan and pay. You need not run to your ATM. Likewise, you need not cut the check. You have your bank application. You give me your phone number, and I transfer you the money. So I would say, while there is a technical angle involved in fintech, but it is making our life much more easier and seamless. So it is helping us in a way which is much more better, and is helping us in focusing on aspects which are more, I would say, which is helping us in a way where our user experience is enhanced, right? I mean, for example, you did not visit a bank today, right? I don't recollect last time when I visited my bank. or when I visited my ATM to that matter. So there is a human element involved where all of us are, I mean, when I speak of all of us, the fintech world is moving towards solving the real problem which we all deal with.
Sure, sir. Thank you so much for your answer, sir.
Now, the next question that we have for you is, companies had to take drastic measures to cut costs for survival in the pandemic. Did the finance department face any conflict or dilemma with respect to other departments? And if yes, how can it be resolved?
Can you repeat your question, please?
So companies had to take drastic measures to cut costs for survival in the pandemic.
Right.
Did the finance department face any conflict in that regard?
Any conflict?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So when I say, I'm presuming that you're thinking of cutting cost in finance section as well, right?
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
So finance again is only a subset of the overall ecosystem which an organization has, and certainly finance was not left alone, right? What has happened when we speak of cost cutting? Cost cutting can happen in two ways. One is by and if I have to speak about finance, one is to reduce the manpower, and second is also by becoming more efficient, right? I mean, when I say cost cutting is not the only option, you can also add value in the whole process, right? So yes, finance functions have been under pressure for two reasons. One, if the volume goes down, the numbers have to go down for everybody. So for example, if the malls were shut, the finance function, the number of people required were reduced, right? So if that is the reason, obviously because there was scaling down, the number of people got reduced. But that's beyond that also, the number of people in finance are certainly reducing, because of technology. As I mentioned, because of artificial intelligence, because of digital intervention, the role of humans is certainly reducing. Also, what happens is, it is not just about cost cutting. It is given that because once we have technology intervention in place, you will have efficiency which will come in, right? For example, if you wanted to book a cab in past, or you had to call somebody, you had to wait for that person. There was a supplier and there was a buyer. For a buyer and supplier to come together, there was always a lag. Now there is no lag. You can see Ubers and Olas of the world. They are near you. You book them. There is efficiency in the whole process. The middlemen have gone. Likewise, in an organization, when technology comes in, there are efficiencies which come in. For example, I was just talking about, gone are the days when we used to write checks. Companies used to pay their vendors through check. The checks were in drawers. They were in drawers for weeks altogether. Then somebody would come in. You will either post, or the vendor will come and collect the check. Then he will go to his bank and deposit the check. Now through NEFT, RTGS, the payment happens at the click of a button. So think of a situation where you had to wait, or or the organization had to wait for their payments to be realized in 10 days, 15 days. Now you have that payment coming in on the same day. That means you are saving on cost. You are reducing your working capital. You are reducing your interest cost. So technology has certainly helped, and the companies are going beyond the defined boundaries to adapt technology. Today, we are sitting on this platform. I am somewhere in Uttar Pradesh at one of my client location. I don't know, many of you would be in your hometowns and attending this lecture, right? So with the help of technology, not only finance, but the companies are transforming completely.
Thank you, sir, for sharing more light on FinTech by answering students' queries. We are indeed grateful for you to sharing such technical insight on FinTech industry, its impact, opportunities, scope, and future.
Sure.
With this, we come to an end to day one of the Shastri Indo-Canadian virtual lecture series. We express our heartfelt gratitude to all the eminent speakers who joined us today to share their valuable experience and words of wisdom with us. We would now like to call upon Dr. Ashutosh Mathur, Head Corporate Affairs at Symbiosis Center Management Studies, Pune, to kindly give the vote of thanks.
Hi. I, on behalf of our director, Dr. Adya Sharma and SCMS Pune, take this opportunity to offer our sincere gratitude to Dr. Prachi Kaul, Director, Shastri Indo Canadian Institute, for taking out time for her busy schedule and gracing the occasion. I further extend my gratitude to our speakers, Mr. Ashok Nambudari, Dr. Boria Muzamdar, and Mr. Saurabh Tripathi for such an insightful exchange of ideas. Yes, of course, special thanks to Mr. Ashok for his constant support and making the event possible. We sincerely thank our mentor and guide, Dr. Adya Sharma, Director, Symbiosis Center for Management Studies, Pune, for constantly supporting and guiding us. Ma'am, without your support, the lecture series would not have been possible. Thank you, ma'am. Yes, I request all attendees to join us tomorrow sharp at 9:45 a.m. for the day 2 of the lecture series. Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for having me here. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Saurabh. Thank you so much for coming.
My pleasure, ma'am. Thank you, sir. Bye.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
We thank you all once again, and we shall meet you tomorrow for day 2 of the Shastri Indo-Canadian Virtual Lecture Series. Thank you and stay safe, everyone. Goodbye.
Thank you, Anushri. Thank you, Sumit. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.